You're listening to the Paul Young Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Paul Young Podcast. And today we are doing emails from Joani part 8. This is pretty cool, this one. And we're going to talk about some things that I want to give you a little bit of a heads up on. And that is in this poem, I don't know if it's a poem or if it's a thought construct or it's a excursion into the inner and outer worlds of Joani, but it's really quite beautiful. In it, she mentions some things that I can alert you to. She mentions Simone Weil, who is an amazing human being who wrote some amazing things in her 20s and passed away much too early. She also mentions Meister Eckhart and Teresa of Avila and Origen. These are mystics and early church folk. And she mentions them because she is engaged with their work, but they represent something, as you will come to hear. This email, it was in September of 2024. So we're moving along here. We've started in June and we're now in September. And we'll kind of move along a little bit quicker at this point, but I thought I'd share it with you. Hi, Paul. 2 things. It's been a long time since I read The Shack, maybe 10 years now. But I think I may have stolen your word especially in a poem I tried to write just recently. I didn't realize it until afterwards, but I'm betting that the reason my mind was drawn to it was because of your use of it in The Shack. Those of you who read The Shack, you know that I kind of pulled a different perspective out of just I love you to I'm especially fond of you. And when I used that, it resonated with me because I felt like this is more about the other person when I say, you know what, I'm especially fond of you. I love you is more subject oriented. It's I love you and it's easy. But if I say to a grandchild, I'm especially fond of you, that is a different conversation. That is a different impact. And I think that's what she's referring to. But her basic question is, I wonder if it's okay. I posted it on a blog. If you'd like me to take it down, I will. It's not written from the perspective of your papa, but just still, I think I was influenced by you. I thought maybe I could add a small note that I was influenced by your turn of phrase, but I don't know if you'd like me to acknowledge that either. Let me know if there's something you'd like me to do. I won't be offended if you like me to take it down. Now, I'm not offended at all. And you don't have to acknowledge me either. There is something about the way that we get to live in this world where everybody seems to be, not everybody, it's a generalization, but many, many, many people seem to be hoarding. They're hoarding their little part of the world, their little community, their little followers, their piece of the pie. That, as Donna and Jamie Winship talk about, is a scarcity worldview, a scarcity mindset. And in a scarcity mindset, you end up comparing yourself to others and competing with others so that you can retain your little kingdom, your little territory, your whatever it is. And it can be very small, but you're a hoarder. And that comparing yourself leads to destructive things in terms of how you look at yourself and destructive things in terms of how you treat people. It leads to violence, and the competition can be very harmful. You end up trying to promote yourself or protect yourself. And it's all because you think that there's a limited amount to go around. Now, opposed to that is a kingdom mindset, a kingdom point of view, a kingdom paradigm, a kingdom worldview. And that is an abundance one. We are in union with a God that there is no limits to. And now we're talking about trusting that God in order to violate our addiction to a scarcity mindset. And in that one, you're not comparing and competing. You're actually cooperating and creating and sharing. And that is love. That is compassion. And it's love that fuels that. You don't end up in violence. You end up in cooperation. You end up in sharing. You end up in kindness and openness. Because we know that this God does not have limits, and that we're participating in something that doesn't actually belong to us anyway, and that we may not want to put a claim onto in terms of our identity, our worth. That's what happens in a scarcity mindset. What gives you identity, worth, and value, and significance, and security, and meaning, and purpose, and destiny, and community, and love? Well, it's the piece of territory I have. It's that which belongs to me, that I'm entitled to. There are things that belong to me. That's true. And they're a gift, and I hold them that way. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about needing something that you believe is scarce that you need to protect. And you need to promote yourself in order to be seen, in order to be more capable of holding on to that which you think is going to give you all of those things, identity and worth and stuff. Tamper with someone's little kingdom, whether it be a theological kingdom, a church structure kingdom, an arena of philosophy, or their PhD work, or I mean, you go on and on, their acting career. You tamper with that, their little part of the world that they think keeps them safe, their political addictions, whatever. And that is not motivated by love at all. It's motivated by fear. And fear leads to violence in thought, word, or deed. And violence reflects that we have false identities, that those false identities are not based in the truth of who we are and in the kingdom that we are a part of, but actually in the world, part of the ways of the world. And so when it comes to things like Joani is asking about, I'm not at all offended. In fact, I like what somebody told me recently, and that is, if it resonates, it belongs to you. So if I say something and it resonates with you, it now belongs to you. And you can share it, you can give it away, you can do whatever you want. I know that I do this. I have folks in my life who have said something that resonated with me, and down the road, you'll find me talking about it as if it was mine. And for all intents and purposes, it is. I could probably backtrack and figure out who told me that gem or that jewel, that idea, that thing that affected me and impacted me. But I'd be lost in time trying to do all that. If it resonates with you, it belongs to you. And I love that. And so, when I write stuff and I hear people, or I've spoken things and I hear people later using the exact same language, and it's theirs. I mean, as far as they're concerned, this is something that the Holy Spirit showed them, and I don't disagree with that. Maybe I said it and it resonated with them, and now it belongs to them. All that to say is that we don't need to hold on to territory and property in that sense, artistic fears that somebody else will take stuff. Now, it's wise to have your stuff copyrighted. It's wise to get a copyright if you write something. I mean, there's lots of things in terms of being smart in this world that are protective of you and your family and things like that. But it's not about trying to maintain your peace with a mindset of scarcity. You retain your abundance and you share, whatever that is. Then we end up in cooperation and covenant rather than contract and comparison. Anyway, just a thought. And so I told her that I'm not offended at all. Part 2 of Joani's email. I wrote this following, and I don't know if it's worth sharing, but I thought I would chance it with you anyway. No pressure if it's too much reading for your eyes. It's kind of a poem, maybe. Ego is a funny thing that I mostly hate, but am very, very, very aware of. Now I'm going to read you what Joani wrote. Can I be content to be a pebble carried around in his pocket? That's a great first line, and it hits the issue of contentment, because in a scarcity mindset, you're never content. There's never enough. And so for her to start this thought experiment, or whatever this is, with, am I content to be just a pebble carried around in his pocket? Of course, the reference is to Jesus, is to be important, is to be valuable, is to be seen, all that. This is what I want to ask myself again and again. My ego wants to stretch, to see and be seen. It feels like enormous pressure, a thing that wants to grow as tall as the Tower of Babel, to gobble up all the bits and pieces of knowledge that sit outside me, and consume them until I own all. I feel it as intelligence, an enormous capacity that rests inside my head, though uneasy, though itching to expand, and yet I lack drive, I lack ambition, I've hardly flexed that unused muscle, or am I deceived by its size? Maybe this is by design. Maybe, in the cacophony of voices of knowledge, I would lose myself and him. Not him losing me, but me losing him. Maybe I would use that knowledge, like intellect, like a map to find him, while all the time my head is buried in it, seeking road after road and him standing right beside me, and me not knowing it, not feeling or seeing or hearing, too busy consuming, too busy growing that ego frame into unbending, blocking steel and stone, rather than porous linen or water-stained wood. Can I be a pebble in his pocket? One who doesn't know what he's doing, or why, or where he's going? If my world is dark and small, and I only come to know bits and pieces, a string of truth here, a scrap of paper there, a crumpled up receipt of his travels, can I find joy if that is all I am? A pebble that his fingers close around and hold? When he thinks, when he is being comforted, if he gets bored or tired or just busy organizing the universe in that invisible, quietly astounding way of his? If the words I speak are simple-minded, if the marvels that fill me with awe are only basic concepts, like him being with me and me being with him, if he is the only one who knows me, who sees me, if we get home and he takes me out and still I am a small, simple pebble unseen by the world, small and only cherished by him, as one of those childlike treasures placed in a bowl of others, can I find purpose? Can I find worth there? I hear names like Simone Weil, Meister Eckhart, Origen, Teresa of Avila, and I'm envious. Full of longing, I see all their shiny, jewel-like beauty, and I want to know them, to speak of them as friends, as casual acquaintances. I want to taste their thoughts and find them familiar, to be numbered among them. My ego, it is always, always hungry. I want to shock them with my intellect, with my knowing, until his fingers slip down inside of his pocket and I feel them gather me up, and all I can see in every direction is him. His hand, his skin, the beat of his heart through his thumb. And all of that other nonsense is forgotten. All those names and all that knowledge and that poetic turn of phrase and intimidating intelligence. It may only be a small piece of him that I know, just one patch of skin. I can never quite see out of his pocket to the road he carries me on. I can never hear his conversation clearly with others or divine his thoughts about any big thing. I do not even know his species. I only say him because of my childhood, because of habit and ease, and because it comforts. Most of all, because he lets me. It is easy when I'm held in his fingers, but not so when he has other things to do and I rest in the dark of his pocket, not able to see or feel, but only hear the murmur of his voice now and then. Am I content to just be a pebble in his pocket?